My next guest, and I've got to say, probably out of every person we've interviewed, has got the best background on Zoom. So let's say hello to Chesney Hawkes. Hello.
It just means I'm away with the stars, Lewis.
I love that. What do you use to do that? That's incredible.
Well, it's all part of Zoom, mate.
I love that.
Yeah, I'm surprised you haven't discovered virtual backgrounds yet.
No, that's literally after this. I'm going to be all over that. That's for sure. How are you keeping busy during this? Are you on lockdown? Because you're in America as well, aren't you?
Yes, yeah, I'm in Los Angeles, and I've been keeping busy by doing live concerts. A lot of those. I've been hanging out with my family, my kids. I've got 3 kids, wife. Take the dogs for a walk, playing board games, picking up a guitar here and there. You know, I mean, it's quite nice because I'm always touring. You see, so
Yeah.
just actually spending time. Well, they're getting to know their dad.
So, what do you miss most about being in the UK yourself?
Well, family. You know, because I'm always traveling. I actually get to spend a lot of time in the UK, and I always say there's certain things I miss. I miss that kind of green and pleasant land, you know, because I live in a desert, and there's no beautiful golden green hills, you know. Or it's like when I get home and I've got friends like in Dorset, something like that, and I go traveling down that way, or anywhere in England where it's just beautiful, you know. And I never ever kind of, you know, take what's the word I'm looking for? You know, kind of take it for granted. Sorry, it is early here, by the way, Lewis, but this is like a 7 a.m. thing, so I'm still waking up. My vocabulary is coming slowly.
I kind of wanted to go back to the beginning for a lot of people. And, you know, I actually only discovered this recently, that you starred in a film originally before the one and only was released.
Yeah.
So I wanted to actually go back to that. And how did you actually get your part in the film? Like, is it something you auditioned for?
Yes, I was always a musician, and that was something that I always wanted to do. That was kind of my life's goal, was to be a songwriter and singer and a musician. My dad was in a band called the Tremolos, so
Wow.
so I grew up with it. You know, he was like a 60s kind of star, really. And I saw that there was a Roger Daltrey who starred in Buddy's song. Was going to be he played my dad, and he was on British TV on GMTV, I think it was, and he was appealing for a young kid that could possibly be his son, the right age. That was a singer and guitar player and a piano player, and I literally just auditioned for it because I thought, well, that's my way into the music industry, because the kid was you know, a musician and a singer and a songwriter, so it was kind of tailor-made for me, really. And I did one of those X Factor style auditions with, you know, kids all around the block and everything, and I kept getting called back, and eventually got the part. And I was very lucky to be right time, right place, you know, and the right part for me. So that's where it all started.
So when you first actually heard the song, did you kind of have an idea that it was going to be such a hit? As soon as you kind of first, you know, heard it, did you think this is going to be something special?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I always loved the song, but it was my chance to meet Nick Kershaw. That was the biggest kind of reason for doing the song. Was like, if I do this, I get to meet Nick Kershaw, you know, because I was such a huge Nick Kershaw fan as a teen. And obviously my dreams came true there. But no, I don't think anybody really knows, you know, if you've got the magic of a hit single. You know, if we did, we would bottle that recipe and sell it on. But you know, you just don't know what's going to happen. And obviously, the stars have to align for a hit record like that. And obviously, everything kind of came together for me there.
And I mean, I actually interviewed Nick Kershaw a couple of years ago, and we spoke about the song. And he had fond memories of writing the track as well, and he thought you were the perfect fit for the song. So we actually spoke about that as well.
Oh yeah, bless him. I mean, Nick and I are really, really good mates, and you know, we've written songs together for the last 30 years. And you know, I've had songs on his albums, and there's always a Nick song on one of my albums. So he's been very instrumental in my career, to be honest with you. You know, I started writing as a young man. I mean, very young. I think my first song was when I was like 9 years old, but then when I started writing with Nick, you know, he taught me so much, because I don't know if you're a Nick fan, but his writing is just so interesting and different, and he goes places that you wouldn't necessarily normally go. And like, you always know a Nick Kershaw song, normally because it's in about 3 or 4 different keys. But
when it comes to, for you, when you actually write songs, what do you look to for inspiration? Do you take stuff from your kind of own personal life?
Yeah, those are the magic ones that come from reality. I mean, I write songs, you know, obviously about love, about my wife, about my family, my kids, just friends, lives, inspiration from everything, really, from nature. I mean, it has to come from the heart. I mean, those are the ones that stick.
When you write a song, say like you just mentioned now, you know, for your wife, and you actually then perform it to them, do they kind of get emotional that you've actually written something especially for them?
Yeah, of course, of course.
Yeah.
There's a song on my last album called Airplane, which was written for my kids, about paper airplanes, about how they used to love playing with paper airplanes. And you know, every time they come to a gig, they're always like, airplane.
What I did want to speak to you about, because I mean, the song, you know, the one and only, features on loads of these kind of albums, you know, one-hit wonders, the greatest #1 hits. But I wanted to speak to you about that phrase, one-hit wonder, because that's something you're not, because you've had other chart hits. Your albums have been hugely successful. You've maintained a strong following for all those years. So do you ever take offense by that term, or is it something that you've learned to kind of just, you know, love?
I wouldn't say love. I've certainly come to kind of accept that that people do, you know, like to use that phrase with me. I mean, listen, I realised that you know, that the one and only was a huge hit, and I never really managed to kind of follow the success of that. So I understand why people think of me as a one-hit wonder. I do get it. The phrase kind of has followed me around, as you could imagine. I mean, just the fact that the song's called "The One and Only" also doesn't help with that kind of phrase following me about. But you know, I don't mind it. I totally understand, and you know, I certainly you know, wouldn't change anything that happened to me back then. And you know, I am proud of the record. It could have been worse. You know, I'm at least I'm proud of the actual record. It could have been the you know, some other kind of little, you know, novelty pop song or something.
I mean, that song did catapult you into kind of a huge amount of fame. And I wanted to speak to you about, obviously, going from that, having a #1, the success and everything that goes with it, to then not get another #1 after that. Did that put you in a false sense of security at times? Because you've been set on this massive platform, and then you had a lot of kind of expectations on you. You know, you've just had a song that's gone to #1. I guess for you, there's a lot of pressure, but also anxiety with it, maybe back then.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I was very young. I was only just 19 when I released that record. So I just thought, oh, this is what happens when you put records out. Guess #1, let's do another one. You know, so you don't really understand kind of the intricacies of the business. And you know, I was thrown into the kind of music business machine, as it were. And I remember at the time my manager, Bill Kerbishley, who also managed the Who and Led Zeppelin. He called me and the team into his office and said, you know what, I hope this one isn't the #1. Because at the time it was doing really well and it was kind of steaming up the chart. I think it was #5 at the time. And so I really hope this isn't the #1. And at the time, you know, 19-year-old me was like, what, are you crazy? Of course I want it to be #1. You know, but in hindsight, I kind of understand what he was getting at. You know, it's when your first release is that successful, it's generally quite difficult to follow.
And not only was it the music that was a success, but it was you personally. You became a huge sex symbol. You know, like, you know, people like Bros and other people, they became, you know, huge sex symbols. So did you love to have that status, because you were on every kind of poster, magazines that were out there at the time? So did you love being that kind of 90s sex symbol?
You know, there's two sides to it. One is that, yes, of course, it was kind of every young boy's dream. I was traveling around the world. You know, it was a lot of attention, and I had my brother with me. He was the drummer in my band, so you know, we had a lot of fun. It was a really kind of a crazy time, but I look back on and think, wow, did that really actually happen to me? You know. But then on the other side of it is that, you know, you lose your kind of your own life and your own anonymity, and you know, I went from, it was very fast, that kind of putting the record out and then having that success. So I went from kind of being able to go to the pub with my friends and just kind of, you know, have an ordinary life, going to cinema and whatever, to not really being able to go out. You know, to kind of hiding in my parents' boot of the car to get out of the house, you know, and there's girls camped outside the house, and, you know, you kind of lose your own life, as it were, you know. And also you because I was part of that machine, you kind of lose a little bit of your own decision making in life, you know. It's like, I remember just kind of getting up in the mornings and going, where am I going today? And then, you know, the record company was like, yeah, you're going to Sweden and Germany, and then we're going to end up in Belgium, so for a gig, you know. So that kind of, you know, decisions in life that we all take for granted, just like completely out the window instantly. Yeah. Like that, you know.
And you know, from the kind of mid-90s going on to the mid-noughties, there was quite a big gap from where a lot of people didn't hear from you. There wasn't music being put out there, and there was a kind of a big silence. So why was there such an absence from yourself and music being released? What was, you know, going on through those years?
I was, well, to be honest with you, it was a regroup more than anything else, and a bit of a reaction to the whole pop craziness. So I formed like a couple of bands. You know, I was like into Radiohead, and I did play, but I wasn't under my own name. You know, I had, you know, I used to kind of play the guitar and shoegaze and turn up to 11, and you know, I didn't want anything to do with pop music, and if anyone recognised me in the band and called for the one and only, I'd be like, and that lasted for probably about 7 or 8 years, actually, until I got an offer. It was just at actually at the beginning of the noughties, like maybe 2001, something like that, where to go out as me to do a couple of student union gigs. And I was very apprehensive, didn't really think that people would still remember me. You know, it was 10 years since the one and only, and I hadn't really been around. So I was very apprehensive. And I remember being backstage, and there was like house music playing before I went on. It was, you know, and I thought, oh my God, this could be a nightmare. All I had was just me and an acoustic guitar. And anyway, I walked out on stage, and the crowd just went nuts, and it was just a lot of love, you know, and people with face on their t-shirts, and, you know, and it was interesting that what I didn't know through those years is that, you know, the song had become a bit of a student anthem, and had been kind of handed down as like a mantle or something. And you know, the great thing about music is the songs have a life of their own. You know, I had nothing to do with that ownership of that song. It just kind of went off and did its own, that record, I mean, went off and did its own thing. And, you know, it means things to different people. And I love that about it. And now, you know, at the time I was very much kind of anti the song, and we've kind of fallen out. You know, these days we're good friends.
And in recent years, you have had your solo albums that you've been releasing and releasing different tracks. And what's kind of nice to hear is, I mean, when you listen to your first earlier music to now, there's a feeling of that you're content with what you're doing, and it just feels there's a lot of relaxation. You're getting a lot of control in what you're putting out there. So do you like the fact that now you're getting so much say in what you put out there, and you're not kind of being dictated to, like, you know, you're going to be doing this, you're going to be doing that? You can just sit down and do what you're best at, which is music.
You hit the nail on the head there, Lewis, to be honest. I really enjoy, you know, having control over every part of my career now. You know, songs, and I remember recording songs back in those days that I wasn't really that happy about recording, but because it was kind of mandated from above in the record label, I kind of had to do it. So these days, you know, I write the songs, and I record. I don't ever record things I don't want to record, you know, and it's all in my terms, and I do it my way. And I think that you know, my music now is a lot more personal, and you know, I still have my pop sensibilities, and you know, there are songs from those days that I still absolutely love and I still play all the time. You know, I did, as I said, I've been doing these live and unfiltered shows from my front room, and I'm always getting requests for songs from the Buddy Song film soundtrack, and songs from back in that era, and which I still love to play. But then I get requests for songs that are from all my solo albums over the years, which is lovely. You know, all my fans have kind of stuck with me.
And you know, you were just saying then that you love the fact that you're getting to have the say in what you're doing. When you were told, you know, basically what you're doing, did that make you fall out of love with music? Because, you know, for someone like you who's got such a passion for not only singing but actually recording as well, and writing songs, to be told what to do, did it make you fall out of love and think, do you know what, this just isn't for me anymore?
It didn't make me fall out of love with music. I mean, that's something that has never, ever happened. I still absolutely love the process. I love music. I live and breathe it. You know, it's very, very much part of my life and always has been. But it did kind of show me another side to what the music business really can be like. You know, and I feel for these kids that come through, like X Factors and Britain's Got Talents of the world, and or even not music, just like, you know, through the kind of Love Island and that kind of stuff, where literally fame is all they want. You know, it's what they strive for and what they kind of think is the be all and end all of life in a way. And of course they struggle. And you know, because my fame was so kind of fast and meteoric, I can relate to it. I can relate to what they're going through. You know, you think you have your friends around you, but really they're not really your friends. And really the most important thing is to look after your own mental health. You know, I know I've seen a lot of these young people who've been through that kind of fame machine. And, you know, some people have got into real trouble with their mental health. And in fact, some have committed suicide, right? From Love Island, there's been some suicides. I mean, it's awful. You know, I think I was lucky. I had a great family around me, and kept my feet on the ground. But I think it's important that these kids get help, you know, therapy, and you know, people that can be there to actually talk them through the process, and not believe their own hype. You know, because if you don't have good people around you and a good solid base and a family about, then you're going to just fall into the trappings and believe your own hype, and then suddenly when it's not there. And I know that it doesn't mean anything, this whole fame thing. But of course, if you're young and impressionable, you can really struggle.
And I think for, you know, people like you mentioned there, Love Island, you know, they've gone from being everyday people to being on the show to millions of people. They get the instant fame that comes with it. But now social media, of course, is a huge factor in that. You know, they can get judged on their looks. They can have memes made about them. And I think that plays a massive part as well. And I know back in the early 90s, we didn't have nothing like we do now with social media. It didn't exist. So do you think you would have struggled with that, you know, what people have now in regards to the social media aspect? Would you have struggled with that in your early teens?
Yes, I think I possibly would have, because what happens is negative reaction from wherever it comes does go in. I mean, I had it too. It was very different. It wasn't social media, but it was, you know, from press. And you realize that when you have fame, you're going to have people that love you and people that, you know, for whatever reason, don't like you or don't take to you. So the trouble is with the social media is the anonymity of it, and it's so vicious. You know, I've had it myself on Twitter and whatever. Mainly on Twitter, actually. Twitter seems to be the place, isn't it, for the trolls and the. But it's not just famous people, you know. I mean, my kids have had it. You know, I remember my son, even at a very young age, was being kind of, you know, trolled and had bullying via social media. It's a very, very different world to the world I grew up in, for sure.
I just want to point out the fact that when The One and Only was released, I wasn't born. I was born in 1993. Yeah, you look the same age as me.
Oh God!
It's crazy. I was looking, thinking, hang on a minute. He looks the same age, and I wasn't born when the song was released.
What's wrong with this picture? I don't know about that, Lewis. You look like a baby to me.
I got to. I want to speak about what you do now. Then, what projects are you working on? Because obviously, this lockdown's put a lot of things on hold for people, whether it's shows or albums that are coming up. So, were you working on anything that's been postponed due to this lockdown?
Yes, absolutely. I just finished an album with my producer, Jake Gosling, who is a very successful producer. He was the one that discovered and produced Ed Sheeran's first album, and he's worked with everyone from One Direction to, he's done all sorts of great people. So I had a great project all on the go, pretty much ready to drop. And of course, it happened literally as I was about to start making the content, like, the videos and photos and all that kind of stuff. And so it's all kind of screeching halt right now. But in a way, it's forced us all to diversify and rethink our lives and rethink how we create. So I've, we've got a new plan together, which is interesting. And it did all get put back, and we're looking to, put the record out early next year. But I'm making different content to go along with the album. Like, so we're going to do kind of acoustic versions and interesting kind of different little snippets of the album. And I'm really proud of this album. So I want to do it right. It's given me more time to really think about the creative side of it and create all sorts of different new things. And in the meantime, obviously, I can't play live. I had gigs, festivals right through the year. Everything's just like, stop.
Yeah.
And so I've been putting on and organizing online concerts through this website that I've put together called liveandunfiltered.com. So if anyone's interested in coming to see me live, it will be from my living room. But it's been fun. I've been having interaction with fans and literally talking to them, bringing them on. So it's a lot more kind of intimate, and I'm capping it at like, a small amount. So it's always it's like me in my living room to you in your living room. And that's been really fun, actually.
And that's the thing with technology like it is now, with apps like Zoom. A lot of people that I've been speaking to over the last weeks, like Tony Hadley was one of them, and he said he's been doing these live music sets with various people that join in, and they're kind of duetting. It's incredible that you can still do that, with what's going on.
Well, technology, huh? I mean, it's kept us all close. Thank God for technology. I mean, otherwise, we'd all be very much closed off, wouldn't we? It's a beautiful thing. I mean, I'm sure you're the same, and we've been hearing it from the world over, but I've been, back in contact with people I hadn't seen for a long time, and people have been in contact with me, and all the neighbors are stopping and saying, "Are you okay? Everything fine?" It's really brought humanity together, I think.
I think you're kind of outdoing me with technology in the background. I've got this cheap canvas that I thought would look nice, and then you've come lovely. On, and then you've got the space behind you. Music's obviously a big passion of yours, but I want to talk about theatre and musicals, because you've also worked on that as well. So when it comes to working on, oh no way! Do you know, this is incredible. Absolutely love that. When it comes to live performances in musical and theatre, there's no room for mistake, essentially, because you're live in front of an audience. So do you love that feeling? Because that must give you a bit of an adrenaline rush when it comes to performing on stage.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing quite like that. I mean, for me, the difference in different types of performing, it really kind of makes it a real kind of change to your mindset. So for me, I love playing with the band. I'm more of a kind of plug and play and hope for the best type of thing. Well, I rehearse, but I kind of secretly love it when you don't get a sound check, because it's like seat of the pants. You're not sure what the sound's going to be like. I very often play with musicians that I haven't ever played with before. And I kind of like the energy to that. It kind of gives it a little bit of a spark, a little bit of like, you don't know what's quite what's going to happen. But then with musical theatre, it's a little bit different. That way you really do have to be prepared. You need to hit your marks. You need to know where you're going. You need to know your lines. Everything needs to be in place, because if you don't hit your mark, then you're not lit properly, and it's a very, very different medium, which I love as well. I'd say that musical theatre is a little more. You have to keep on your toes a lot, and I do like that, but it is nerve-wracking. It's very, very different.
Because what was the show you did? It was, oh, I remember years ago. You would it was based on Barry Manilow's music.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah,
I've
because
done
that was a big one.
and quite a lot of musical theatre over the years. I've played Joseph. I played Jesus in Godspell. I've done all sorts of little bits and pieces over the years. But that one, yeah, it was a Bill Kenwright production and UK tour. It was on tour for like 5 or 6 months, and it was called Can't Smile Without You. So I've definitely Barry Manilow'd out now. But that was actually a real challenge, that, because it was not only did I have to, you know, obviously have all my lines and acting down, but I actually played the piano parts as well. And Barry Manilow is renowned for, in the same way Nick Kershaw is, but all the songs, not only do you have to learn it in one key, you have to learn it in 6 or 7 keys sometimes. That song, Can't Smile Without You, it just keeps going up and up and up and up and up. And so I had to learn the piano parts. And he's not just a, you know, play the chords kind of guy. He's like, he's a real, he grew up with classical music, you know, Chopin, and
Yeah.
it was all very, it was a real challenge.
Well, Chesney, it's been amazing getting to talk to you. I spoke to you some years ago, and it's just nice now to actually see you, you know, at the Bahamas by the looks of it, and you know, talk about your career. But not only that, tell people what you're doing now, because I've listened to the solo stuff, and the voice is so powerful, and it's really nice to listen to because it's just you sometimes. You know, your guitar when you do the acoustic stuff, and it's just nice to hear the rawness in the voice and the fact that you're so relaxed in what you're putting out there now.
Oh, thank you, Lewis. That's really nice. Would you like to review my albums from now on? So I'll take that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Lewis. It's really nice hanging out with you. Yeah, we'll see you next time, eh?
Thank you.